Hi everyone, welcome again to Bake Your Way Kitchen. On today's video we're going to be doing a maple shortbread square, essentially. It's a shortbread base and a maple filling. And this is very much up my alley because I love anything maple flavored related, which probably makes sense because I am Canadian, so I think it kind of goes hand in hand. I think liking maple related anything is kind of a prerequisite for being a Canadian. Anyway, we'll get right into it because it's so simple. And what I've got here is a food processor, and we're going to be pulsing to create a shortbread mixture. Now, if you don't have a food processor, you could do this by hand using a pastry blender or just two knives and chopping the pieces of butter into the flour mixture until it's kind of crumbly texture. So what I've got here is 2 cups of all-purpose flour, which is about 260 grams, with half a teaspoon of salt. So that's going to go right in here. There we go. I've got half a teaspoon of granulated sugar, which is about 100 grams. Whoa. This is organic sugar. So it's a little clumpy. There we go. And what I've got here is vanilla bean paste. Very delicious. I love it. Uh-oh. I'm out! I'm pretty much out right now, so I'm going to have to resort to some vanilla extract, which I'll get in a second. But what I've got here is 1 cup, 227 grams, that's 8 ounces of unsalted butter. And I'm just going to go grab the vanilla. Alrighty, so I've added in the vanilla. And so I'm just going to put on the top, and you'll notice usually with a food processor it snaps shut, but the spring here is broken, so I have to use a tablespoon or a teaspoon to make it, to basically take the place of the lock on this food processor. So if you're wondering, that's what it's for. That's the only way this will operate. So now we're just going to pulse it, like so, and you just want to do maybe 20-25 pulses. What you're looking for is for it to turn, whoa, better keep my hand on top here. You're looking for the butter to basically just combine crumbly into the flour mixture. You're not looking for it to be an all-out dough, because we're going to press this into our 9 by 13 inch pan, which we will be needing. And while this is pulsing, or you can take a break from pulsing, you'll need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 180 degrees Celsius, and it looks like we're about here. I'll be showing you in a sec. Alrighty, so this is what you're looking for. And very important, when you're making this, you've got to use chilled butter. It can't be softened butter. So this is what you're looking for, this crumbly mixture. The butter is fully incorporated in with the flour. So this is exactly what we want. Now we're just going to go ahead and spread this out. This is our base layer for our shortbread. You're going to spread it out and then press it, and I'll show you a quick tip for making sure that it all gets flattened out. You can go ahead and flatten it out just using your hand, or what I like to do is use the back of a ramekin and then just simply press it down. You can kind of use both your hand and ramekin, and this just really sets the shortbread on the bottom and also makes sure that the layer is flat. Because you don't want some parts to be lump-sided in the middle or whatever, or just wherever it is. You just want it to be all flat, or as flat as possible. So this is going to go in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, and what you're looking for is just simply the edges to be start to turn a light brown color. So I'll show you what it looks like once it's done. While our shortbread base is in the oven, we can go ahead and make our maple filling, which is so easy, it's not even funny. So what I've got here is 2/3 of a cup of maple syrup, which works out to about 160 grams. Just a tip for you, with maple syrup you want to make sure, first of all, get real maple syrup. Do not even bother making this recipe with fake maple syrup. That is like a big no-no in my books. But seriously, my tip is whatever container you use for pouring your maple syrup or for measuring, whether by weight or by volume, so by weight being by grams or by cups volume. I would suggest doing by weight so that you have a more accurate measure. But however you do it, make sure you grease your container because maple syrup can be very sticky. And so that's what I did with the measuring cup. I've also got about 3/4 of a cup, which is about 150 grams of brown sugar, lightly packed if you're using volume, but 155 grams for those that are using weight, and then about 100 grams, half a cup of white sugar or granulated sugar. I've also got 4 tablespoons of melted butter, which is about 1/4 cup of butter. And this is unsalted again. And we've got 1 egg and an egg yolk. And that's it. And simply what we're going to do is mix this all together. So all my whisks are in the dishwasher right now, so I'm using a fork to get this started. And this is a baked filling, so when our crust is lightly browned, we're going to be pouring this over the top and it's going to go back in. So you can see right away, that's all we're doing. We're simply incorporating the sugar, butter, rich maple syrup, maple mixture that we've got here, and it's going to go directly into our pan once our base is out of the oven. Our crust is now out of the oven, and it's very lightly brown. Like, you'd really want to just very lightly bake this. It doesn't need long because this is going back in the oven. And it's nice to have a softer crust. You don't want it if you put it in too long, when you take this out, after it's all done, it's going to be very tough at the bottom and it's going to be very tough to eat. You want to make it so that it's still very soft. So, I got my filling here. Now, this is where you can get creative. I'm going to use pecans for the top of mine. I think it's important to have some type of nut or something to really cut back, because this filling, and I should warn you, this is definitely a recipe for sweet tooth, because this maple filling is very sweet. So one thing you could do as well is cut back 1/4 cup excuse me, on the sugar, like let's say from still use 150 grams of brown sugar, but you could cut back from 100 grams of granulated sugar to 50 grams. But that's completely up to you. That's if you're really sensitive to the sweetness. But simply all we do is pour the filling directly over the top, like so. And try to get it all out there, and it'll spread very easily. It'll all fit. It should kind of go to the corners on its own, but you'll want to use an offset spatula or something just to really make sure that it all gets in there. Okay, so the filling's spread out, so now you can take some of your pecans, or you could use cashews, you could use peanuts, you could leave it on its own, you could use walnuts, you could toast them in advance, that would be very nice, but just lightly toasted. And you just want to distribute this evenly. You could do it more fancy if you please, but this is a very casual dessert. If you really want, you could go row by row by row, like 10 by 4 or 5, if you really wanted to get all formal, but I think just doing it like this is fine. And this is going to go into oven, again at 350 Fahrenheit, 180 degrees Celsius. You just leave it on when the crust comes out. And it's going to go in for about 25-30 minutes. There we go. And you can add as much or as little of these pecans as you want. You could add some chocolate, but if you do use chocolate, make sure that it's a dark chocolate. or something bittersweet, something over 70%, because there's enough sweetness going on here. So I would suggest definitely consider that. So this is going to go in, and I will show you what it looks like once it's done. Our treat is now out of the oven, and it just smells incredible in here. You can see the edges are a little bubbly, but what you're looking for is that the filling has set. So that means when you shake it, it's not moving around, it's set. And I took it out just in time. There's no burning at all. So unfortunately, we have to wait before we can even dig into this. However, I would suggest right as it comes out of the oven, maybe after a couple minutes, using either a flat edge spatula or this is like one of those square scoopers, just go around. Oh, see, it's still a little fragile. Some of the edges are a little more tender, so you want to be careful. But the reason I suggest you do this as soon as possible is because we are dealing with a very, excuse me, we are dealing with a very sticky mixture, and we want to make sure that it doesn't stick to those edges too easily. So I would suggest shortly after, it might be a little, I might have done this a little early. I waited only a couple minutes, but I just know I've done this type of, I've done a similar recipe to this in the past. I've basically adapted this one that I'm doing here, and I had it stick to the edges, and it just really made it very difficult to cut in the end. Okay, so I've now gone through the edges and just around the edges, so now we're just going to let this sit for about 25-30 minutes. Let it cool down a bit before we cut it. It'll set a little bit more at room temperature. Well, it won't be at room temperature at 30 minutes, but while it's cooling down, it will set, making it easy to cut into squares. And I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll dig in. So it's been about 30 minutes, and I've already cut some of these up and put them in a container, but I thought I would take this opportunity to give it a try. They're still pretty sensitive, so the longer you can wait, like over an hour if possible. But I couldn't wait to dig in, so let's give it a try. Nice buttery shortbread. Nice maple flavor. It's not overpoweringly maple, and it is sweet, but that pecan really, I think, really sets a good balance of the sweetness. I would suggest cutting these very small because they are rich. Serve it with milk, or you could do whipped cream, but just milk's fine. It's a great treat to serve. It's a great holiday treat. This would be something excellent to bring for around Christmas time, but really any time of the year. Maybe not in the middle of the hot summer. This is a bit of a heavier dessert, but it's still very delicious, and I would highly recommend you give it a try. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please visit bakeyourway.com for full recipe details and more. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.